Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler are set to fight next week at UFC 309, and Michael Chandler is looking for revenge over the man who ripped his chance at being the champion away from him.
Yeah, Michael Chandler actually kind of dominated Charles in that first round. He dropped him hard, and I think a lot of refs would have stopped that fight.
Both of us are huge Charles fans, but it wouldn't be fair to say that we aren't a little bit worried for Charles against Chandler. So today we're going to be breaking down this fight, trying to figure out who's coming out on top in UFC 309's main event.
Look, I didn't buy this $75 t-shirt for nothing, okay? I need Charles to win.
Let's look at Charles Oliveira's first. So everyone knows he had that loss to Arman Tsarukyan at UFC 300 in a super close fight that I don't really discredit against Charles. It was close. I personally actually had Charles winning that decision, but either way, I wasn't disappointed.
He also could have won in the first round with that guillotine. If Arman's shorts didn't slip off, he would have had that locked in, and it could have been a first round finish, and Charles is right away back in that title picture.
Before that, we had the win over Dariush, and then we had the loss to Islam. So Charles' two recent losses are both to just elite level wrestlers and two people that are at the top of lightweight right now.
Yeah, I think the Beneil Dariush one is interesting because he won in the first round. He dominated, and that was actually in Vancouver, Canada.
Yeah. 289.
Something like that. So that's kind of cool.
Come back to Vancouver, UFC.
But I think that win has aged slightly poorly just because Beneil Dariush has fallen off a little bit. So I don't love that win for him. And then again, before that, it's that loss to Islam Makhachev. Got submitted. That's the way he does people, and then Islam did him like that.
It's just so weird to see Charles get submitted. Like, it just doesn't feel right. It feels ironic.
And then before that was, of course, his legendary run. You had Tony Ferguson, Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje. So this is a rematch. Like we talked about, that first fight, that was one of the most exciting fights. I mean, every Charles fight can be considered one of the most exciting fights that you watch of the year. So that's probably the reason why I'm looking forward to this the most, because you watch the Chandler fight, you watch the Gaethje fight, you watch the Poirier fight. They walk towards each other and start throwing. You have to love that.
Most fight night bonuses in UFC history. Charles Oliveira.
And with this trash card, you know he's getting another one.
Honestly, yeah.
100%.
Now let's move on to Michael Chandler, the man that is 2-3 inside of the UFC. He is 2-3.
It's weird because I feel like you either overrate him or you underrate him. I think I actually underrate him a little bit because I always talk about how bad he is, how he doesn't have a good record in the UFC, but he was Bellator champ, and in all of his fights, if they went a different way, he could have won them.
Yeah, so we have the win in his first UFC fight over Dan Hooker, which has probably aged better with how Hooker looked against Gamrot. And then we also have his win against Tony Ferguson, but that win don't look too good anymore.
No.
But then we see him losing to Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, and Charles Oliveira, three of the top guys of lightweight over the last 5 years. So it's like, is he in the tier below them, you know?
Yeah, when he's had to face elite competition, we've talked about this so much. When you have to face elite competition and these guys start losing, it kind of shows their true level. And I think that we saw him lose to Charles Oliveira. But again, first round looked great. Almost finished him. Justin Gaethje almost finished him. Dustin Poirier almost finished him.
But then got choked out by Poirier.
Poirier is a great submission. Like, not submission artist. That's
he
too far.
He has submitted a few people.
He jumps the gilly once in a while.
Yeah, once in a while when he's feeling a little silly. Charles beat Poirier and Gaethje, which doesn't look the best for Chandler, but that's UFC math, and we all know how much that doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. And like we've said, anything can happen, especially in a rematch. Chandler, we haven't seen how good he is in 2 years. He's been waiting for that Conor fight. He didn't get it, but he did get another massive fight with Charles at 309. So I'm really interested to see what's the level he's coming in. Because he's been training, we know he's in the gym. He looks absolutely massive, like freakishly big for lightweight. He's a little bit shorter, but he has power. And he blitzes in, which gave Charles trouble last time. He got caught a couple times. He always catches people with, what is it, the left cross? I think that's the one he always catches people with. So I am worried for Charles's chin because in every fight he takes damage.
He does. Every
fight he gets dropped pretty much, except like Dariush. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not excited for the inevitable dropping of Charles Oliveira, but I'm excited for him to lock in a submission.
Before we move any further into this card, Lucas, what's going on with all the rumors surrounding it? like it was seemed like it was like basically official that this fight wasn't happening, but then both these guys are posted on social media talking about the fight, so it seems like it should be good now. Who knows if it was just a misunderstanding from someone or what was going on, but with the way that fights have been going lately, pullouts just seem inevitable. Like, good things can't happen inside the UFC right now.
Yeah, well, we had Cody Garbrandt pull out of UFC Apex 100. We had that weird Tracy Cortez miscommunication with Tampa where now she's not even fighting and said she never was supposed to be fighting. So there's been a lot of weird stuff. Now, I have looked on Twitter, and the account that posted this first is a little bit how do we say, like, unreliable.
Sus?
Yeah,
Sussy.
they've posted a lot of fake stuff before, and then when one person posts it, you want to be the next best person to break the story, so then you get everyone posting it. It looks like it was completely fake, and it looks like this fight is for sure still on. Oliveira and Chandler both
Have posted about this fight in the recent days.
Exactly.
Yeah, all it really takes is for ESPN or Full Violence or one of the big accounts to post the rumor, and then all the other ones are going to follow, and next thing you know.
Yeah, and usually, like, if Championship Rounds posts it, it's pretty official. So this was a weird one because it was like, yeah, is Chandler too big for lightweight? Like, is the cut not going well? That's the thing that I was kind of thinking of, because right now he's so lean already, and he hasn't even really started his major cut yet. So that really worried me, and I think that's my main concern. People were saying, oh, Charles is out, and I'm like, I don't know. Charles, he usually hits weight pretty well.
Yeah, it would have to be an injury, and then it would be the UFC announcing the injury. It's not some little social media page announcing an injury.
Yeah.
Or directly from the fighter. Let's talk a little bit more about this fight. So Chandler has a 2-year layoff while he was waiting for Conor McGregor. Never got that fight. Might never, with the controversy surrounding Conor McGregor right now.
Yes.
Not for us to talk about.
No.
But will this 2-year layoff affect Chandler? How has he been training? Because you're going to have a different approach if you're training for McGregor to Charles Oliveira. Two completely different fighters.
Definitely, but we have to remember Chandler is a high-level wrestler at any point in his life. He was super high-level in collegiate, but he hasn't really used it in the UFC that much. He did escape Charles Oliveira on his back in the first fight, which was madly impressive. He's so explosive. So I don't think there's any worry for me in terms of he hasn't been training. What I am worried about is ring rust, or octagon rust in this case, because we saw Amir Albazi take that long layoff, looked awful in his fight. Granted, it was against a high-level opponent, Moreno, but Oliveira is the same high-level opponent. And you're coming off, 2-3 inside the UFC, and then he hasn't fought on top of that for 2 years. I'm very worried, not worried, because I want Oliveira to win, but I just think there is a large possibility that Chandler isn't as sharp and doesn't have as much cardio. Granted, he's never had great cardio. He just goes all out in round one, which is why everyone loves him. But yeah,
it's interesting, and it's really we're not going to know until they're both in the ring.
Exactly.
You know, is he going to come out here and look awful, or is he going to be in good shape? You know, he obviously looks physically fit. Like, he might have one of the best physiques in the whole UFC. He is shredded.
Yeah.
But that doesn't correlate to being great in the octagon.
Definitely not. I think it's actually an inverse relationship. Usually you see the guys who look great, they usually do bad.
So what do you think each fighter's key to success is in this fight? What is their key to victory?
I think it's pretty obvious. I think Chandler, he's already tried this once. He had success. He should have finished it. I think he needs to go out and do the same thing, blitz in, but he needs to be slightly more conservative, because if he gets his back taken, it's so easy. Oliveira slips a punch, gets an easy takedown. That's how it happened in the first fight, and I think it could happen in the second fight as well, because once Oliveira is on you, it's very hard to get him off. Oliveira he needs to be more conservative. He needs to stop walking in the line of fire without moving his head. He gets clipped every single time he goes into range with great strikers, Poirier, Gaethje, Chandler. He does win, but I don't like the amount of damage he's taking, and we've seen with Max Holloway, it's not sustainable. Eventually you do get KO'd.
Yeah, I feel similar way for Charles. I think against an opponent like Michael Chandler, Chandler is bound to make mistakes.
Yes.
And you really just have to wait, be conservative, and capitalize on those mistakes, because he's going to do some stupid stuff in this ring.
100%.
And if you're able to capitalize like he did in the first fight, that is going to be Charles's key to success. For Chandler, it's going to be aggressive and finish that fight early, because Charles is going to be able to perform much better in those 4th and 5th rounds than Chandler is going to be able to perform in those 4th and 5th rounds.
You have to think so. The build, like carrying around that much muscle mass is not good for a UFC fighter, because when you're in those 4th and 5th rounds, you're drained. And with the weight cut that he's going to have to do, it's not going to be easy. Charles is more well-versed in those championship rounds because he's just been a UFC fighter for longer. And he's been fighting more frequently right now. Chandler, I'm very suspicious of how good he's going to look in the ring. I would have loved to see him against McGregor because those are two guys who are coming off layoffs. I do want to mention that it's not the same circumstance as coming off a layoff like McGregor. You look at Chandler and McGregor, these guys live very different lifestyles. Unfortunately, McGregor has gone down the route. He has enough money to do whatever he wants. Fair enough. Good for him. He made that. But for a UFC fighter, Chandler is still in the gym, it looks like, very consistently. He has a pretty good mindset still. So I'm not like worried that he's out of shape. I'm just worried that carrying around muscle mass like that is going to really not be good for him.
And that's fair. How do we feel about these odds? Charles Oliveira -250, Michael Chandler +200.
I get where they're coming from because, like we've been talking about this whole video, Chandler hasn't been in the UFC. Charles is a proven #1 contender for so long now. I think it's fair, but at the same time, I would not bet on Charles. I would be more likely to bet on Chandler.
Yeah, I think given the odds for this fight, the money should be on Chandler for this fight because Charles Oliveira could win. But obviously, we've seen him lose many times in his career, you know? And we saw Chandler drop him. The money should be on Chandler in this fight. The odds feel okay. Like, I think maybe Charles like -200, Chandler +150 kind of thing. Like, I feel like that's a little bit more fair. But then you have, maybe you just go all in on Charles there. You know, I lean Charles in this fight.
But not to the extent of -250.
I do think that Chandler's going to come in here with a chip on his shoulder after all the McGregor stuff. I do think he's going to come in and mean business. And I am worried for Charles Oliveira, genuinely. But I still slightly lean Charles Oliveira. Likely submission. I think I'm leaning a Charles Oliveira submission in this fight.
It was impressive how he finished him in their first fight. You don't see a lot of like powerful TKOs from Charles. It's mainly submissions, obviously. But yeah, I can definitely see a submission. Chandler does have, I think, underrated wrestling because most people just watch his fights. You see he's a brawler. Like, he's literally known for being a brawler when he has some of the best wrestling, which just, it doesn't make sense. It's like Justin Gaethje, collegiate wrestler. How about I just not use my brain and just throw strikes and get hit in the head?
The CTE got him.
Yeah, so it's a similar case. I'm definitely leaning towards Charles as well. I'd say confidence level, I'm about 68-32.
All right, final question. What happens for the winner? I think it varies on who wins. I think Michael Chandler gets this win. Honestly, I think he gets a title shot.
Really?
I think he faces the winner of Arman versus Islam because there's really no one else. They're not going to fight Gaethje. They're not going to fight Poirier. They're not going to fight Hooker.
They might. They could actually do it. No, they want Dan Hooker to match up against an exciting striker.
Like I think that if Chandler goes in there and gets the win over Oliveira, I think that the title shot's his over the winner of Islam versus Arman. And I think that that's also a big fight because you have America versus Dazakhstani.
I think realistically, both of them could get a title shot off of this because Charles is still right in that conversation with a close loss to Arman, who's challenging for a title. Arman wins. It's a good rematch story.
Exactly.
But Islam has been dominant for so long.
Islam would get the immediate rematch.
Yeah, so then Charles is out of the ring for a little bit, and he's waiting. I don't know if he wants to wait because he's getting older. Same with Chandler. He's getting older. So I think these guys are going to want to fight again. Chandler actually posted on his some sort of social media, I forget which one it was. He wants his ideal run would be beat Charles, come back for McGregor, and then go for Islam, which is actually a good idea.
But I think that there's no chance McGregor within the next year is fighting in the UFC.
Yeah.
It's looking like he might never be back.
Yeah, especially with everything that's going on. It's tough.
I think for me, Chandler wins. I think Chandler gets the title shot. And then I think if Chandler loses, I think he fights, maybe he doesn't fight again, or maybe he fights Patty
or Hooker. Hooker's honestly too high.
I think that they would use him to elevate someone. I think Hooker would be above him. Like, I think that
Moicano.
Yeah, I thought Moicano. Maybe the timelines don't work. And then if we look at Charles wins, I think. Honestly, I know welterweight stacked, but if Islam's the champion, why not try Charles up in welterweight? I know he might be a little bit short, and maybe a little bit small, but why not try it out? He's not like he's gonna beat Islam. I don't know if I really want to see Islam versus Charles again.
It's not the biggest fight. Like,
No.
it doesn't have the most hype.
Well, just because you don't want to see Charles lose, and you know Charles is gonna lose.
Yeah.
You know, Islam's just kind of better at everything. But I think if Charles loses this fight, one fight I'd really want to see would be Charles Holloway 2.
That would be so good.
I think both their timelines would line up well.
Yeah.
Both would probably take about 8 months to a year to fight, but as the co-main event of a big card, Charles versus Holloway, and then you can take the winner of that, and Holloway can get the win over Charles. Title shot from there. Get him that win in lightweight.
And Charles hasn't had the chance yet to get a BMF belt.
Yeah.
And I think he deserves that.
Yeah, and you put the BMF belt on the line.
Yeah.
And then you also have Charles come in. He gets the rematch, you know, for that weird neck poke thing going.
Yeah.
This is by far the fight I'm looking forward to the most on UFC 309. I'm just knocking on wood that nothing weird happens. We get this fight in the co-main event.
Yeah.
And I think we're in store for a banger fight.
Every fight, you go back and watch Charles's highlights in the last 5 years, and every fight is a banger. So
Exactly.
you can't not be excited for this. It's a guaranteed great matchup.
We're going to be rooting for Du Bronx.
Yes.
Lucas is going to have some white blonde hair.
Yeah, I forgot about that. So I actually finally found a way to get my hair blonde, because if you've been watching the videos for a while, you know that if we hit 2K subs by 309, which it's looking like we're going to get to, you guys have to subscribe though to get us there. We're not there yet. I'm going to go blonde, and that'll be featured in the next, like, probably week and a half.
Wicked.
Yeah, I'm excited.
It's going to be interesting. So make sure you guys subscribe to see Blonde Lucas, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.
See ya.